Are you sure you're not Jewish? I've chosen that as the title of my talk because it's one of the questions I am most often asked. As people try to work out, what is this Christian in charge of a Jewish school? It's a question that I absolutely love, and a question which, by the way, I see as the highest compliment that could be paid to me. I love it, I think, for three reasons. First of all, because it speaks to me of a generous acceptance by this community that I love. I can pass for Jewish, yes! If that's true, it's because I've spent 50 years, best part of, in North London. And along the way, I've picked up a certain amount of Jewish knowledge. I lived in Hampstead Garden suburb. I got on the train at Golders Green in the morning. I went to Habs for secondary school. I then went to study theology as my degree at university and picked up a little bit more. Then I taught and still do teach religious studies in North London schools for 25 years, and now here I am working at the Jewish Community Secondary School. And along the way I've picked up a network of Jewish contacts. I've picked up, so I'm told, the occasional Jewish inflection, Jewish mannerism. I've been commended by a Golders Green rabbi, no less, for my impressive understanding of Jewish cultural references. You want that I should contradict him? I should add that I've actually only tried this out in North London. Now, if you would have put me in a much more alien and hostile environment, like South London, it probably wouldn't work. But then I think maybe that's yet another thing I have in common with most North London Jews. Secondly, it's a question I love because it speaks of boundary crossing. People are not quite sure what to make of somebody who would do what I am doing. And there's an energy in that. There's a dance with definitions. And after all, what was Avram, the father of the Hebrews, who took his name, if not a boundary crosser, taking that risk to heed the voice of Hashem and cross over from Ur into Canaan and all the rest that followed. So it raises that wonderful issue, who is a Jew? But it raises it, if you like, through the back door. It's an issue that was absolutely central to the foundation of JCOS, my school all those years ago. But here's a new way of asking that question. I love it, thirdly, are you sure you're not Jewish? Because it speaks of what in Christian theology is called incarnational enculturation. If Christians believe that God self-immerses himself into creation in the person of Jesus, and by the way, if there are any Christians listening, that's what you should have been celebrating these last 4 days of Christmas. But if that is what Christians believe, then Christianity needs to proceed by immersing itself in each culture and each community where it finds itself and trying to listen and to learn at least as much as it tries to teach. So incarnational enculturation. Put more simply, for a Christian to pass as a Jew among Jews is a mitzvah. So I'm really honored to be the first non-Jew to be invited to do a JDOV. But when I've tried to gain some kudos for that over the last few weeks, I've been rather undermined by the fact that people have said to me, well, you kind of are Jewish. So now it strikes me with a kind of existential urgency. Am I sure I'm not Jewish? One of the key times I've asked that question, ironically enough, was on the first residential weekend of my course of training as an Anglican priest. The weekends run from Friday night until Sunday lunchtime, so I go straight from school, and I arrived there all Jewed up. Kabbalat Shabbat in my ears, the taste of challah on my lips, and the first thing I'm pitched into is some evening worship, which I can only describe as very Christian. And it felt extremely alien for a good long while. I felt the force of Ruth's words to Naomi, your people will be my people, and your God will be my God, not this bunch of weirdos and this Jesus they insist on worshipping. When my fellow ordinands asked me the question, are you sure you're not Jewish? I think what they mean is, are you really, in Anglican terms, sufficiently, well, kosher? But having said all of that, what's the answer? Am I sure that I'm not Jewish? Yeah, I'm sure. For all its madnesses, for all its frustrations, maybe because of all its madnesses and frustrations, I am sure that Christianity, or at least my bit of it, feels like home. But having immersed myself in a role of leadership within the Jewish community over the past 5 years, what has struck me are some things that Christians need to learn from Jews about how to be more Christian by being more Jewish. And it has a lot to do with how to live on the margins. To look at that question, what am I doing as a Christian, as an ordinand already, being head of a Jewish school? I could give you an autobiographical narrative about what led me to apply. Well, it was a new school, that was interesting. It was a faith school, I like faith schools. It was a Jewish school. It was sure to have its act sorted out politically, strategically, financially, educationally, philosophically, and to have a good whack of parental investment behind it. And all of those were things that were draws for me. But what I think it comes down to is this. As a child, I knew I was a member of the established, default, mainstream background religion of this country. At school in Hampstead Garden Suburb, in assembly, we sang Christian hymns, me and my atheist and Jewish and Hindu and Muslim friends and I. And we said Christian prayers, and nobody really worried about it. In fact, the school play when I was there was the Ramayana, which was pretty out there in 1976. But the fact remained, Christianity, my faith, was the kind of one people were assumed to be happy to go along with unless they'd specifically chosen a different one. Mine was the place of worship that they didn't attend. In the 4 decades since then, the Church of England has significantly shifted its place in the public square. Despised, rejected, vilified, criticised, maybe tolerated as a part of the heritage industry, but certainly not taken seriously anymore. I don't have any truck with those who say that somehow Christians in the UK are persecuted or oppressed. We're nowhere near that. But the position has certainly shifted, and I'm not altogether upset about that. This stripping of power away from the church actually offers us the potential to be put back more in touch with our roots. All power corrupts, and over 2,000 years, power has, I think, corrupted and distracted the Christian church away from bearing witness, as we are supposed to do, to the life and death of Jesus. The words despised and rejected are taken out of Isaiah 53 and applied to Jesus in Christian liturgy. So if we, the church, can have the experience of being despised and rejected, maybe we'll have a chance of getting closer to what it was like to be Jesus and to see the world as he saw it. Meanwhile, during those same 4 decades, the Jewish community, at least in my part of the world, has seemed to be going on a journey in the other direction, growing in influence, growing in political and cultural capital, growing in political influence and muscle. The existence of JCOS and numerous other Jewish schools which have grown or expanded during that time is testimony to the growing influence that the community has. This is a minority that knows what it's doing, that knows how to wear minority status well and make it work. And the way that education, the way that charity, that community, that scholarship, that hospitality is marshaled for the good of the community is absolutely awesome, speaking as, I guess, an outsider. In the last 2 years, here's what I've been doing. I've walked the corridors of power. I've been a guest inside 10 Downing Street. I've met royalty. I've mingled with the top end of the rich list. I've hosted senior politicians from government and opposition. You can see up on the screen, here's me with Michael Gove. Here's me with Ed Miliband. They were only a week apart. The photo that I took of Ed Balls scrutinizing the work of one of our students at JCOS, the son of a Labour peer. And then there's Boris. There's Boris with my school's head boy taken at Hanukkah in the Square about a fortnight ago. Why did I not get the selfie with Boris? Is it because I'm a little too polite? Is it because I lack a certain chutzpah? Am I sure I'm not Jewish? Yeah, because otherwise I would have got the selfie with him. Not one of these photos, not one of these opportunities has come about through my own experiences. Independent education, Oxbridge, 3 generations in the civil service, the established church, not a single one. They have all come about because I have been the head teacher of a state school for the grandchildren of rootless European refugees. So maybe that is what I'm doing as a trainee priest in a Jewish school. I'm learning how to do despised minority with style. I see what you do, and I want some of that for my community. But there's one last thing before I close. The Church of England still retains the trappings of establishment. Its vestigial power, its sense of entitlement, its assumption of permanence. Even though its real influence is declining, it has delusions of importance. And a really interesting observation of myself is that when I hear of stories of Christians being persecuted by ISIS, my very first reaction is to think, well, you know, they've had privilege for all these years. They probably had it coming to them. You know, let's not be too sympathetic, as if I'm some kind of self-hating Christian. The Jewish community, on the other hand, seems to me to have the trappings of oppression, a vestigial outsider paranoia, a sense of insecurity that lurks, a need for stability, even though its real influence, as I see it, is growing. It has, if you like, delusions of inferiority. Some years ago, I was teaching a GCSE class about what Jews do and do not mean when they say that they are the chosen people. And the task I gave to the class was to correct the deliberate errors in a number of statements. The first statement said, Jews believe they are better than all other people. Quick as a flash came back the answer from one Jewish student. We don't believe we're better than all other people. We know we're better than all other people. And it was a wonderful answer, and it was delivered and received with great humour and great warmth. But it did speak to me of this growing confidence. I'm also happy to say the person who said it is now the head teacher of a Christian school in Camden Town. So I don't know what that says. I wonder if the Jews and the Anglicans can do a deal here. You can help us in embracing minority status. Show us how to clan up and to survive, secure in the knowledge that nobody else is going to do it for us. We can help in return by sharing our experience of the risks of having too much power, how it can corrupt, how it can compromise, how it can distract you for some key cherished goals and make you quite unlike yourselves. That's been the history of the church for most of 2,000 years. We are world experts at it. We will gladly hold up a mirror if that is what's required. So, do I dare to say that the Jewish community might be distracted from its true nature and mission by having too much power and influence? Or would that show that for sure I really am not Jewish? Thank you.